and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. If you are new to the show, I am your host, Tracy Fryer. Now, my guest today wanted to be a soldier in the army growing up. He is now the founder of Career Life Transitions. Peter James, welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. Love to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for making time to be on the show.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Peter, yes, Peter, something you mentioned in the notes that we send you a question set. Something you
Yep.
mentioned is personal growth, changing values, becoming an authentic human without all the baggage. Do you mind to walk us
hmm
through that, please?
Yes, I guess it is. Life is a journey, and I guess at some stage you can say, "Well, I draw the line in the sand, and this is the best I'm going to be, or the best I can be." But it's a never-ending journey, and I guess looking forward and saying, okay, what else can I learn? Where else can I grow? I guess we get to a certain stage, and I've seen people in their 30s do it. I've seen people in their 40s do it, and people in their 50s where they're like, "All right, I've almost kind of given up, or I already know where I'm at." But there's so much opportunity and so much life left in everything. It's sad to see that, and I guess having gone through some real sort of changes and what have you through my own life and really learning that, I guess I've come to the conclusion that you only learn when things go wrong. You don't learn when things go right. And it's
So
almost
true.
like the more mistakes you make, the more you learn. And I guess I've made a myriad of mistakes. So kind of moving forward, and now realizing that putting yourself out there and taking risks is learning, and then learning is stimulating you to research more and more. So I say to anyone I'm coaching, you never learn from everything going right. You only learn from things go wrong, and that's a great opportunity
So true.
to change. And I've made some massive changes on the back of some really horrendous decisions.
Thank you for sharing. Is
Yeah.
there perhaps like a pivotal moment reflecting back that kind of started that sort of process for you? Is there something that happened maybe in your 20s or that sort of made you think, wow, sort of, how can I angle this, how can I approach this differently?
I think um, definitely. I think when I was younger, I almost sort of fell into the career I fell into, mainly because of my family. So my great grandfather actually moved to West Australia to run the factory that built the pipelines for the Kalgoorlie pipeline. So we have a
Oh,
lot of connection to WA. So he settled here, and subsequently the entire family here. So I'm like 3 or 4 generations West Australian, which in itself is quite unique.
it
But
is.
yeah, so he was an engineer, and my grandfather was an engineer and ran a manufacturing facility, and my father was an engineer and he lectured engineering. So guess what? You kind of fall into engineering, and I guess the worst thing about engineering is an inability to do maths, which I think I was cursed with. So I put a lot of effort into dragging my sorry butt through
Oh,
through exams and what have you, and subsequently, I guess I see myself more as a people person, and then I moved
yes.
into sales and marketing and wanted, but still in that same industry. But and I had
Hmm.
all the same focuses that young people want. Can I make more money? Can I do this? And I'm very, very career focused and what have you. And I guess at a certain stage, I had a few events here. One of them, my father passed away, and he was a really wonderful man and a fantastic mentor for me. And it did
Hmm.
cause me to sort of stop and think, hang on, what am I, and what do I enjoy doing? And I kind
Yeah.
of look back at where I saw where I enjoyed adding value in the workplace, and a lot was developing and training people and helping people and what have you, and which, funny enough, is what my father was doing. So it was a bit of a pivotal moment to say, I think I'm going to go across the other side of the fence and look back and develop myself and see if I can be a coach right across the board.
And walk us through as well. So did you start your career in engineering? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I make mechanical
Yeah.
engineering, so refrigeration, air conditioning, ventilation systems. Yeah. So I
And
spent
how long did you do that for?
oh, 20 years. Yeah, I know I'm a lot long.
Right.
I'm a lot older than I look. I understand that, but
Yeah.
yes, I spent 20 years in the mechanical.
Fabulous.
And interesting, as I say, because I was almost four generations in that, it's very interesting to completely change careers and look around, because
It would
I
be.
guess I didn't realize the power of the networks that my whole family had. Like almost everyone in the
Yes.
industry knew my dad. They knew my grandfather and what have you, and that just opened so many doors to step out of that and into something completely new. I had to kind of build a whole new brand for myself, a whole new direction, a whole new who is Peter James.
And was your father's passing, did that kind of coincide with the end of your engineering career? Was that moment?
It was, yeah, as I say, it was very, very stressful for me. I actually just, it was middle of winter, and I actually just went down to a house, bought enough food for a week, and just sat by myself in a house for a week. Just
Mm.
sort of getting my thoughts together and what have you. And I guess it was at that stage where uh, I was looking to move overseas. It was a big organization I was working for, and they were international, and there was opportunities to move overseas. And my mentor in the business said, "Look, you're going to need a master's in business administration or something like that." So I had actually stopped and was finishing a master's in an MBA. And I guess when Dad passed away, I tried to finish that. I quit work, basically, finished that as quickly as possible. And in that time, I started doing some leadership development. I had a few friends of mine were ex-special forces and what have you, and they were throwing people off bridges and out of planes and off cliffs and,
My
all this
goodness.
kind of stuff. And I thought, this is a heck of a
Yeah.
lot more fun than engineering.
Definitely,
So
adrenaline rush.
yeah, exactly. So I bolted a grad dip in adult education onto the back of my MBA, and embarked on a career in people engagement,
Wow.
organization development, career. Yeah.
And I guess, but 20 years of one's life is a very long time to be in an industry. Did you say that
Hmm.
besides the maths thing, was there
Yeah.
key kind of indicators that you weren't happy in that role? Because again, by society's standard, we're so conditioned to think that we're going to be in one career for the rest of our lives after university. Was there
Hmm.
key things that kind of popped up for you along that journey that kind of led you to moving from that career?
I guess I'm a big fan of. There's a saying, "Pack your own parachute." So
Mm.
I am a big fan, and right or wrong, if I'm not in the right place at the right time, I'm not one of those people who's just going to push it through and hope for the best and all the rest of it. I am someone that's going to step up and say, "This isn't working. I need to do something different."
Yeah.
I mean, take
Mm.
example. I mean, when I was at school, I was so shy. I wouldn't talk to any more than two people in a group. But when I
Yeah.
moved into management, uh, I knew that was a massive issue. And I've actually frozen on stage where I've got up in front of 200 people and gone,
Wow.
your
Oh
worst
my goodness.
nightmare coming true. And I thought, right, I need to
Yes.
solve this problem. So I actively went on my way to train myself and do public speaking. And in fact, I even worked as a professional facilitator for a couple of years just to get over that, because it was just a major
Mm.
barrier for me. But certainly, I, you know, working in mechanical engineering, and I very quickly moved over into the sales and marketing side of that. It was like a
Mm.
$50 million company in WA at the time.
Wow.
So I changed my direction within that to leverage it, so that no, I'm not one that kind of, as required, yes, I don't mind pushing through, but I'm certainly not one to sit back
Yes.
and sort of say, I expect someone else to do this. I'll leave my career in the hands of somebody else. Someone will train me if they want me to do something different. That's never been me. I've
No.
never leaned on a company to pay for any training or anything like that. I've always set my direction and developed the skills I needed to go in that direction. Yeah,
And made it happen as well.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And, public speaking especially is a big fear of everyone. I mean, I myself have been trying to
Anyway.
embrace it a lot more, and it's absolutely nerve-wracking, and hats
Yeah,
off, standing in front of, did you say 200 people and,
yeah,
talking up.
yeah, yeah.
How did you navigate through that?
Well, I mean, you don't navigate through that, do you? You know, you
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 just,
you
yeah.
look like a complete idiot. You confirm
Oh,
everything everyone ever thought about you, and you bumble off
wow.
stage and climb into a shoe somewhere in the corner and hope someone notices you've left. You know, I don't
My
know.
goodness.
How did I
Yeah.
navigate that? I don't know. I guess it's and you can sort of put the line in the sand and say, well, yeah, that's me. I need to run away from this and never do that again. But
Yes.
I knew it was going to be it was a barrier. It was an embarrassment and a driver for me to say, eh, we can't continue like this. I can't achieve my life goals unless I can feel comfortable interacting with people at that level. Yeah.
No, and I really love that you, instead of running away from it, you ran towards it and really just,
Hmm.
went guns blazing and really
Yeah.
embraced it and pushed through that fear. And Peter, now are you confident with public speaking?
I'm not too bad. I guess what makes me a better public speaker is a sense of fear.
Mm,
That drives me to prepare myself well. But then that is balanced with an understand that I don't know everything, that I don't need to
yeah.
be the number one oracle, that people may ask me questions I don't know the answer to. And I think probably one of the key switches for me, and that was someone videoing me doing some presentations and me looking and say, hey, I don't actually look that stupid.
Yes.
I don't look
That's
terrible.
actually
I
really
don't look
helpful.
bad. I actually look like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sometimes we're our own worst enemy. I think we see ourselves so differently to how we actually come across. I've used that tool as
Absolutely.
well. It's really, really good. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't go down the path of, imagine all the audience naked. That wasn't helping me at all.
I have tried and failed, and I don't know how that's helpful to anyone because your mind
No.
just goes into this dark place and you
Uh,
end up laughing. So it's
yeah, there's
not
not too many
professional
people
at
look good
all.
naked. Yeah, not too many people look good naked.
Definitely not. I mean, unless you were in like a conference room or fitness, PT
Exactly.
trainers or whatever, maybe. But yeah. Um, Peter, something you touched on that I've become a big fan of is deep
Yep.
thinking. So you said after you made that career change or were thinking of it, you actually went away for a week and just sort of, sat with yourself
Hmm.
in your thoughts. And I've learned that that is such a powerful tool. Do you mind to walk us through how that's helped you?
Well, I guess it's just resetting and I guess
Mm,
questioning not just the decisions you make, kind of questioning what context you regard those decisions in, and then what
mm,
what is sitting in the background. Because I mean, uh, we are a product of all the inputs we've had over the years, almost since the moment we were born. And we
mm,
have instilled in us certain reactions to the world. So we are programming our brains to react in certain things. Now, certain stimuli, as a youngster all the way through, will elicit a response, and sometimes that's a very self-protective response. And when we're young, I mean, I don't know the neurology around it or what have you, but I do believe that when kids are little, they have the brain capacity for understanding and what have you, and they have the brain
mm,
capacity to operate as a fully functional human being. They just don't have the knowledge and experience and what have you that goes into it. So they're not making good choices about things. Now,
mm.
when you're making some choices to protect yourself when you're 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever age moving in, you pretty much forget why they existed in the first place. So you
Yeah.
kind of fast forward yourself 10, 15, 20 years, and that's your kind of your auto go-to point. And you know, it's only one option. There are many ways of dealing with that, and even kind of deep thinking, going back and sort of saying, well, what is it I believe about myself? I mean, for some reason, I always thought my father thought I wasn't very smart, and I think probably because he's an engineer and I
Ah,
wasn't very good at maths, you know.
yeah.
But and so it you have those thoughts about well I can't be very smart, and and it drives behaviour that isn't necessarily functional either.
Mm,
And for
true.
me, it kind of drove behaviour to try and prove to people that I was smart, which kind of almost backfires on you because no one wants to be hanging around with someone who's trying to prove they're smarter than you or being a smart aleck all the time. So kind of
Yeah, true.
revisiting that back. And then when my father died and I finished my MBA, I went to the grave and said, there you go, Dad, I'm not stupid. And,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
kind of letting that go and then never revisiting that again. But without that deep thinking, without going back and saying, well, what is actually causing me to draw these
Mm.
conclusions about my life, especially the ones that are not functional for you?
Yes. And also, if it makes you feel any better, I was also a standard grade math student. Maths was not my forte. Design, art, biology, that was my thing. But maths, no,
Perfect.
thank you.
Yep. I started history and no one even noticed.
um, It's I mean, what you've mentioned is so important because with my own business owner journey, there's certain things that have popped up for me as well that I didn't even realize was there as
Hmm,
well. Like you said, we're so programmed to kind of just go through life, react in a certain way, or have all the self doubt, and we're not too sure where it's come from. So I love that you've
yep,
mentioned that, and also that you worked through that, which is actually the hardest part, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and it takes diligence, I guess. I remember
Mm,
when I was going through these periods of really, it wasn't self-doubt. There were just I needed some rise. So I used to I put posters on the wall. I still have some now. Little kind of
great.
resets. I mean, one of the very early ones I put up was sit down, shut up, and listen. You might learn something. It's just a little kind of reminder. Back in the days when you had
Straight.
that screensaver on there, and little things like that. That just sort of,
Yes.
because it does take you a little bit of time to you literally reprogram your brain to not think like that.
Hmm.
And I guess breaking through that and thinking, hey, this actually does work. This is I
Yes.
now am actually thinking differently about this situation automatically. Not to say that some of those triggers might not come up, but even when I do feel triggered now,
Hmm.
I'm able to pause for a second and revisit my reaction to something. But it certainly proved to me that, yeah, you can break through any of these self-imposed barriers, because they are literally self-imposed.
So true. And I guess if someone was wanting to start that process, what would be the first kind of step they could take?
Ooh, I think probably there's two ways of doing it. One is the harder way, and one was the easier way. But people rarely
Okay.
take I call it the easier way, but it's the harder way with an easier result. I mean, I
Sure.
guess looking at your life, getting some honest feedback, having a look at what you're doing, how you're doing it, where you're going, and even just assessing that on your own level of success and achievement, if you like. And if you're
Mm.
not kicking the goals you want to go, we tend to be falling into a bit of a society where it's very, very easy to blame someone else for me not being successful or me
Yes.
not stepping up. I guess, and that's what I was saying. When things go wrong, that's where you learn. But it seems to me when things go wrong, that's when you blame someone else for it. So
Yeah. So true.
it is a decision starting point to sort of look at it and say, okay, this isn't working for me. If I need to achieve that, there's
Mm.
something going on here that I need to revisit, whether it's the way I'm approaching people, the way I speak to people, my reactions to things, all that type of stuff. So getting some really good, honest feedback, which is tough. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
it is.
almost at the point of being frightened to give anyone feedback. I mean, when I coach people who are looking for new roles, and they say, "Oh, should I phone up
Mm.
the company and ask them why I didn't get an interview or why I didn't move to the top?" I'm like, "Well, good luck, because you've got about a 99% chance you're not going to get honest feedback."
Yes. True.
Because no one wants to give it to you. So it's really stifling people's growth. So ha- it-
Yeah.
so the starting point of that is, all right, it's not working for me. I guess the hardest part when it actually breaks, and for me, as I say, completely breaking down in public speaking was a point I need to do something differently, or even
Mm.
challenging situations where, well, the whole world doesn't like me, and that's okay. Whereas, when you're
Yes.
young or whatever, you want everyone to like you. I mean, I
So
remember in
true. I was the same.
I was in school, and there was one kid who just took an instant dislike to me, which we all
Oh,
happens, and
yeah.
his insult for me, he started calling me gummy. Now,
Oh,
gummy was because you show your gums when you smile.
oh, I see. Yes.
So then I spent the next 4 years in high school not smiling,
Oh
and
my
that's the kind
goodness.
of impacts these things have on you. And then
Oh.
I'm like, hang on a second,
Mm.
I'm not gummy. I don't know whether,
No,
it was
no,
just the best thing you could come up with. He could have said anything, but you as a kid, you take these things on.
you
But kind of
do.
breaking
Yeah.
through that and saying, no, this isn't working for me. And I guess being
Mm.
able to say that, then the next stage is, okay, what is it I need to start paying attention to? And it could be the context. It could be, uh, you say, your own mental models, any of those. I'm not saying it's not external context as well. I know a lot of people
Yeah.
are stuck in jobs they hate, and they invent reasons as to why they can't leave, and have lots of complaints as to why
Yes.
they stay. Yeah.
And that was to make excuses. I used to be one of those. So
Yeah.
many excuses, but then I'd complain about my job and then I'd have the
Yeah.
excuses why I couldn't actually leave it. And one day I was just like, I'm done. So
Yep. Yeah,
good to
exactly. Yeah,
get
and you
past
probably
them.
never look back. Yeah, exactly.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
It's been great. It's really a great
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. I mean, you have
And Peter,
saboteurs,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, your
No, you
saboteurs
go
are
for
in
it.
your head. Yeah, your saboteurs are just in your head, and they present themselves as being your friend. Oh, don't get
Mm,
up in front of talk in front of an audience. You'll look stupid. I'm saving you
yes.
from looking stupid. Whereas, the sage can turn and say, well, even if you look stupid, you're going to learn something from this, because it's an opportunity for you to stretch. So, yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
No, no, I have a bit the same. So when I am faced with a challenging situation, it's almost like I've got two, it sounds a bit out there, but two different
Oh,
versions. Like you said, the sage and sort of, I call it like a negative Nancy. And I kind of
yep,
work between the two. Well, I can choose to go this way, and that's probably going to
yep,
be the outcome, or I can just be brave, embrace it, and move
yep,
forward, even though
yeah,
it's nerve wracking. But it actually, the personal growth one has after actually embrace it and moving forward is so much more than the other option.
yeah. And it's hard work. It takes effort, and I think a lot of people are looking for you know that whole creativity or growth is kind of like a lucky
Mm,
band, and I think most people are trying to whereas very creative people are stretching that lucky band and out there. Other people are trying to minimize that impact. In other words, they're trying to go through life without any issues. Now, I guess
yeah.
without issues there isn't growth, and so you end up with a
Mm.
very a bland review of life. Yeah.
Yes, it's funny. Lately, I've said it'd be really nice to just have a boring year, but then hearing you say this, I'm like, no, no, it's actually good to have that roller coaster of a year. There's no
Yeah.
boredom.
And the trouble is, you sort of see, and I kind of laugh with some of my friends. Wouldn't it be great to own a lawn mowing contracting and just mow lawns? Or, your capacity for complexity needs to be met.
Mm,
And
yes,
if you're not working something, you're going to get bored in 10 minutes. So it sounds
true.
wonderful to do nothing and have a quiet year, but you'll make it complicated in some other way. I've certainly
Yeah.
tried to make my life as complicated as possible, almost by default, I
Oh,
think.
you and me both. Don't worry. Peter, there's such a sense of bravery on your journey. I'd love to ask, what is the bravest thing you've ever done?
It's a hard question. The bravest thing I've ever done, because because it's kind of multi-layered as well. I guess
Yeah,
making a decision that I was going to get up in front of 500 people again, and
yeah,
get through that. And after that, a disastrous start, and actually kind of really focusing on that. I've jumped out of
yes.
planes, I've swum with sharks, I've done all those
Oh,
kind of
no,
things. I
thank
don't
you.
know that. Yeah, I don't know that. That's necessarily brave. And then I guess putting putting thoughts aside for the benefit of all, I would also consider that quite brave as well.
Yeah,
When you've got people with mental health issues or something like that, and you want to run away and you still stop and stand up. people that get
Mm.
involved with that. So yeah, bravery is it's a very kind of flexible thing. It's
True.
very multi-layered, and I don't consider
Yes.
myself a particularly a brave person, and I am very, very. I'm not quite sure where this comes from, but I'm very, very consequences focused.
Yeah.
So I don't. And I know people that just like, oh, I hit myself with the hand of the hammer and it hurt. How did that happen? It must be your fault.
Yeah.
It's kind
Oh,
of like,
yeah.
hang on a second.
I know those people too.
And I've never kind of, so I am always kind of looking down the track and saying, all right, doing some form of risk analysis is like, so I
Yeah.
certainly have never put myself in a situation where I didn't think I was able to achieve the results and goals I was looking to achieve. Yeah.
And did you say you actually stood up in front of a crowd of 500 people after that incident?
Yeah, like I say, I'm now, and for the last few years, I've been the president of our local Rotary Club, which means I'm pretty much presenting in front of a group every week, every couple of weeks,
Wow.
in terms of Rotary. That I do keynote speaking occasionally. That I'm constantly working with teams of leaders and what have you. A couple of Fridays ago, I had a 3-hour presentation for 80 people at one of the not-for-profits that we work with. So, yes, as I say, there's the yin and yang of everything. The positive
Mm.
side of it. Well, positive or negative is way you look at it. I do prepare. So, once again, looking at the consequences and what have you. But the other side of it, the fear of speaking is purely the barriers and the fear that you invent for yourself. They don't
Yes.
exist in reality. And coming to
Mm.
that conclusion and being able to say, well, yeah, that's I'm making this up. People want to hear someone who's confident. People want to hear what you have to say. People aren't
Mm.
there to judge you. They're actually there to be entertained or educated by you, and that you know I can facilitate an interaction without having to actually know 100% about the subject. And in fact, not knowing the subject and getting the audience involved with their input and whatever actually accelerates the whole experience. So we do
Yes.
kind of go into protection mode, which inevitably is a catch-22, because the more you protect yourself
Mm.
from something, the bigger the consequences is in another area.
Yes. And I just want to actually take a moment to celebrate you because I'm on that journey of getting through my public speaking fear. I mean, even the podcast was well out of my comfort zone. I'm getting a bit better, but just celebrate the fact that after that experience, you really embraced it and you just like gone to the next level. I think it's fantastic, and I think you're so brave for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome, Peter. I'd love to dive into what you're currently doing now and how you help your clients.
Yeah, we Career Life Transitions. I mean, we this is our 7th year. Although I have been in business in this field for about 12 years. So after I
Mm,
moved out of mechanical engineering, and I was in a senior role, as I say, certainly on the C-suite of a 50-60 million dollar company in WA. I once again had that change and moved into consulting and really around the leadership space and at that stage falling into change management, especially around IT growth and what have you, and then really that whole people space and ending up as a change management organizational development consultant, and then having an opportunity to start a business. Which primarily was based on outplacement and career transition. But that's a
mm,
very, very volatile area because when the economy is good and booming and what have you, there's no work. You can be flooded with work, so it goes up and down. So, and it wasn't, I guess coaching certainly was in my blood, but I guess
mm,
that career aspect, narrowing it down to career, wasn't there. So what we do now is, I guess, leadership development, organization development is always, after I left mechanical engineering, pretty much that's where I spent the next 15 to 20 years of my life working in
mm.
that field and developing that set of skills. So there's rolling that into and we sort of call it career life transitions, not to kind of restrict it to any transition you want to make in life. So that transition might
Mm.
be, well, I want a promotion in my job. The transition might want, I want to change career. I want to reskill. A transition may be, I want to retire. I want to buy a business. Or I want to grow in this area. Transition may be, I'm looking to move the values or the culture of the organization from A to B. So we do kind of
Mm.
wrap it all up. It's always difficult, as you probably know, if you don't manage your brand, the world will manage it for you. And
So true.
trying to find that balance. And it's interesting that where we are very well known for career transition and supporting organisations with outplacement, we don't get a lot of work in there in leadership development and team building and organizational development, and the other side is true. So it's interesting kind
Yes.
of running a business where I'm trying to balance the two of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think something that's really important that you guys do, you really help employers sort of transition from being in a work environment and into retirement as well.
Hmm, yes. So there's, as I say, that's I guess the four big things we work on is uh, career transition. So that may either be a role's being made redundant or
Mm.
that someone is making a choice. I certainly have probably more calls in the last year of people say, I want to change careers. This my choice is not.
Yes.
So there's that whole body of work, and we have a whole range of services there, depending on where people are at, what they're looking for. The transition to retirement is really starting to take off, and it's a very interesting area. And I don't think a lot of
It would be.
organisations are thinking about it as much as they should.
Mm-mm.
We're starting to
Yeah.
reach out to some big organisations where up to 30% of their employees are uh, over the age of 60. Now,
Wow.
having done a number of surveys in that area and everyone we meet, so now
Mm.
we've got hundreds and hundreds of data points from people we meet, and that the latest figures we have is around about 45% of people over 60 are looking at retiring in the next 3 years. So if you
Yeah.
have a organisation where 600 people are likely to leave in the next couple of years, how are you going to
Mm.
resource that, especially with that amount of knowledge and
Yeah.
background, whatever they could be walking out of the business? So
Precisely.
it's starting to grow. It certainly was a hard sell for a while there, and a few more progressive large organisations have come on board, and it's
Mm.
very, very well received. And so then moving on to the leadership component, because of the coaching and what have you, and my
Mm.
experience in leadership, we do quite a bit of one-on-one coaching, and therefore leadership is about flowing into team and team development. You've got to have a team to be a leader. You can't be a leader independent of other people.
Yes.
So
Of
there's
course.
that body of work as well. And then, as I say, my traditional background is in organisation development and change management. Yeah.
And do you
Yeah.
have an area, a specific area that you really enjoy working in predominantly?
I do very much enjoy the one-on-one coaching, especially when you're dealing with
Mm.
some smart senior people.
Yes.
And I really enjoy that because I'm at the end of the conversation. I know I'd hate to say it to them, but I'm thinking I'm learning as much about myself and my own growth as
Oh, good.
you're learning. I hope as we go along.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
uh, anything that's challenging your thinking, any complexity to throw out. I mean, you're both learning as a part of that. And I never sit there saying I'm the
Mm.
oracle of everything there is to know about leadership and whatever. But
Yes.
here's what you need to do. I'm certainly looking because everyone's little scenarios because we're all completely unique individuals. The
Mm.
issues in in the bigger space are quite common, but then the intricacies of those really belong to the individual. So kind of being
Yes.
able to, as a friend of mine say, engage in that dance. He was a psychologist, and he said, you're engaging in a dance with someone around that, and saying, okay, I understand the bigger issues. I can see now
Mm.
what playground we're in. Now let's have a look and see the intricacies of you and your contribution to that, and where we can start to really focus to make a huge difference. And that's a lot
Yeah.
of fun, and I do very much enjoy that. Yeah, but I enjoy as I say, I work as a coach, and my hobby is coaching. Yeah, it's sort of like I just find myself
Yeah.
in that role. Yeah,
And being around people.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Although I
And
do
so,
see
Peter,
myself as an
yes.
introvert.
Ah, fair enough. I'd love to know, what would you say are the top three qualities of a great leader?
Ooh, I think the first one is servant leadership.
Mm,
And that is that you're working for the people in your charge. They're not falling in line with you. I mean, I draw a very, very clear distinction between leadership and management. And management is really all the policies, procedures, the KPIs, everything that can be literally managed, if you like. Whereas leadership is a personal engagement with somebody.
mm,
So, your ability to develop relationships with people without, you know, being everyone's buddy or everyone's enemy or anything like that. It's an appropriate
yes.
relationship you have that's an achievement-oriented direction. So we are trying to achieve something here, and I'm using in my interpersonal skills, body language, the way I speak, what I say, how I say it. I guess coaching leaders, I'm always surprised how little they are constantly thinking about how they appear to the people around them. I mean, leaders, they wear a certain watch or they come in the morning, they don't say good morning, things like that. It has a massive impact on the people around them. And they,
Yes.
they think they're just
Mm,
living their lives, but it's like, no,
yes.
you're not. I mean, I used to have one of my, and we're still friends now. He was my manager going back probably 30 years ago. And he'd come in and he was the CEO of the company and he'd be kind of storming through the office and what have you. And everyone would be ducking for cover. And I'd
Oh,
go in after an hour and say, Ian, what's going on? You've got everyone running for cover. He's like, oh, well, the budgie died this morning. The kids are all upset. Had
oh
nothing to do
no.
with anyone. It's like,
And everyone's scrambling.
exactly. But, it's not, it's, so I guess it's that ability. And so that's why any leadership program discussion, it starts off with, do you understand yourself? Because if you
Mm,
don't understand yourself, you don't even know the context of the area you're operating in engaging people. And that's leadership. Otherwise, you're a good manager. And the world is full of really, really good managers. But as I say, and I guess that lack of feedback that we're starting to fall into, that lack of
mm.
honest conversation and what have you, is not helping the situation.
No, definitely not.
And I mean, I do tend to be a bit blunt, and I do tend to start off with, "Look, are you prepared? Because I'm going to give you some direct feedback from exactly what you say, and if I have to
Yes.
tiptoe around your ego, this is probably not going to go well."
Oh, good. I love direct communication. That's perfect. I would love it if someone said that to me.
But you've got to ask permission first.
Of course,
Yes.
definitely. I think some people can be quite overwhelmed by that kind of communication, but I know I thrive
Yes.
on direct communication. It's I find a
Uh,
lot more beneficial than kind of tippy-toeing.
exactly. Yep. But as I say, a lot of people
Yeah,
they want your opinion as long as it agrees with them or reinforces their own view, and
so
that's
true.
not helpful at all. Yeah, not helpful at all.
And Peter, something else you mentioned as well in terms of leadership, that sort of boundary where one's not necessarily one of your team members' friends, but you're also not necessarily their enemy. Is there like a
Mm,
clear way to kind of navigate through that? Because obviously you want to, love your team and look after them, but you also want what's best for them, and you also want to be mindful of how you place yourself as a leader, I guess, in their
mm.
eyes.
Yeah, it's always looking towards the bigger goal of the organisation is very, very
Mm,
important. It's, when I start catering for individuals or playing favourites or, you know, acknowledging this and not acknowledging that, that's when I head down a really bad rabbit warren. So if I'm
mm,
clear about what I'm trying to achieve, and that is not self-serving, and I think that's where a lot of leaders or managers, I won't use the word leaders, fall into that trap. I mean, if I say to you, I need this report on my desk by 4 o'clock this afternoon, and it's going to be sitting there for a week because it's not going to go to management, and that is self-serving because that
mm.
that I've put the context of that on purely for me. It doesn't help the
Yes.
group at all.
Mm,
So, how can I turn, you're going to upset someone who's writing it. It probably won't be the best thing you're going to get. So being a leader is putting everything in terms of what it means for the bigger group, not what it means for me. I'll look bad if you don't do this for me. I won't achieve my goals if you don't achieve this for me. Those kind of things are all very, very self-serving, and it really needs to come back and say, all right, we are doing this as a group for that.
Yeah.
And when someone, even a friend, comes up and says, well, I don't agree with that, all right, we need to have that discussion, because we need to get here. If you've got some other ideas how to get there, we need to discuss that. But I'm not gonna cater for you because you're my friend, nor am I going to censure you
Yes.
because you're my enemy. Or you're
Mm.
someone I might not like as part of the team. It really is sort of saying, well, I don't care what the personalities are necessarily. I'm cognizant of it and I'm engaging with it, but our purpose is to achieve this. And therefore, our interactions are based on that. I'm not your friend, but at the end of the day, you may play golf with them or tennis or whatever
Yeah.
you do after and
Mm.
whatnot. But you really need to be able to say at work, this is me, and this is where we draw the line. Outside of that, that's different. But when you see people
Yes.
kind of like, you're my friend, I need you to help me, and now they're telling you what to
Yeah.
do, and now they're it's kind of like, it's very, very confusing. And really,
It would
people want to
be.
be a part of a team. They want to be seeing
Mm.
results, working towards something, and as a leader, that's what you need to be doing.
And Peter, if you had one bit of advice to share with leaders out there, what would it be?
Take the time to learn about yourself and become an amateur psychologist, really.
Mm.
Because just going and having a look at things simple as DISC as a framework, or your LSIs, or there's a myriad of MBTIs, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're all roads lead to Rome, as they say. And it's not, as I said to people, we're not inventing something new. We're describing
Mm.
something that exists, and there's many, many different ways of describing it. I mean, if I look at any instrument in 1,000 languages, it's a different word, but it doesn't change the
Yes.
essence of what it is. So I sort of say to leaders, you're looking through a bit of opaque glass, and you can sort of see shapes on the other side of it. But being an amateur psychologist is like clearing a little bit of that glass and looking through that window and saying, okay,
Yes.
I see that's a tree, I see it's a car, I see it's a person, I see that. All right,
Mm.
it's not the entire scene and it's not the world or anything like that, but it's clearing a little bit so you can start to make sense of the inputs and what have you. Why is someone reacting that way? And one thing about understanding the way people think, how they're interacting with you, it leads to empathy.
Mm.
And that is very, very important for servant leadership. I mean, there's someone's coming in. I mean, I always laugh around the place, and I had a mentor many, many years ago. He's quite senior in a church. Not that I'm necessarily overly religious, but as
Mm.
I say, very, very nice guy, and very senior in one of the
Yeah.
churches. And I was absolutely aghast at something one of the other team members had done, and I was absolutely determined this person was trying to lampoon, the
Mm.
project and what have you. I went and spoke to Barry, and Barry sat down and said, Pete, there's two buckets in the world. One is the incompetent bucket, and one is the malicious bucket. He said, I always look in the incompetent bucket first. And
Yeah.
someone needs to go out of the way to prove to me that they're in the malicious bucket. And when they're in the malicious bucket, I
Mm.
deal with them quickly. But a
Yes.
lot of the time, it's not what's wrong; it's what's missing, and that sometimes that's missing is what's in your communication. It's what's missing from their understanding of it. And I mean, being a little bit of an amateur psychologist, I understand that people can have a 360-degree view on any subject. You just need to look at what's going on in the world at the moment. Everyone's got a different
Mm.
view. So even just being understanding that will give you some kind of empathy, and empathy is a massive uh, um, starter for one in leadership.
Yes.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much for sharing. Where is the best place for our listeners to go should they wish to connect with you?
Well, you can connect with me on peter.james@careerlife.net.au, or you can phone me direct on 0421 684 602, or you can phone the office on 6336 8620. As I said, or as I say, go to our website, Career Life Transitions. How's that for a
Thank you, Peter.
pitch?
And that's perfect. And no spam marketing calls to those numbers, please.
Yeah, I'm getting enough of those already. I've got a spam checker on my phone.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for your
Yeah,
time today. I've really enjoyed
thank
our
you.
conversation. And
And
thank you for being
have I.
brave. And thank you for all you shared.
Thank you, Ross Tracy. Great to see you.
Thanks, Peter. You as
Thank
well.
you.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Cheers.